Have you ever felt completely outnumbered? Maybe you are trying to start a business with zero capital, facing a life-changing challenge with absolutely no support system, or stepping into a role you feel completely unqualified for. Society tells us that whoever has the most money, the best connections, and the biggest team wins, but history's greatest underdog stories prove the exact opposite. Sometimes, losing everything you thought you needed is the exact setup required for your greatest victory. Welcome back to Biblical Bios, where we uncover the motivational stories of the everyday people who completely changed history. Today, we are diving into the unbelievable story of Gideon and his army of just 300 men. This isn't just an ancient military tale, it is a masterclass in strategy, mindset, and leveraging your disadvantages. By the end of this video, you will know exactly why being outnumbered, underfunded, and unqualified can actually be your greatest competitive advantage in life. To understand Gideon's massive victory, we first have to understand where he started. And he did not start as a hero, he started in hiding. At this time, the Israelites were being heavily oppressed by the Midianites, a massive, ruthless army that would sweep through the land and steal all their crops and livestock. The situation was so desperate that people were living in caves. When we first meet Gideon, he is threshing wheat in a winepress. A winepress is a sunken pit. You are supposed to thresh wheat on an open hill so the wind can blow away the chaff. But Gideon is at the bottom of a dark pit, terrified that the enemy might see him. How many of us are living our lives in a winepress right now, hiding our talents, playing it incredibly safe, and making our dreams as small as possible just to avoid being targeted by failure or criticism? Gideon was paralyzed by his circumstances. He saw himself as the weakest member of the weakest family in his entire nation. But true potential isn't defined by your current hiding place. While Gideon is hiding, an angel of the Lord appears to him and says something that seems almost like a joke. "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." Think about how ridiculous that must have sounded. Gideon was covered in dirt, hiding in a hole, terrified of his enemies. He certainly didn't look or feel like a mighty warrior. In fact, Gideon immediately started making excuses, listing all the reasons why he was unqualified, too poor, and too insignificant to save his nation. But here is a profound mindset shift for every underdog. You are called by your potential, not by your past. The world might see you at your lowest point, but you possess hidden reserves of strength, resilience, and leadership that are just waiting to be activated. When you are called to step up to a massive challenge, you have to stop agreeing with your insecurities and start embracing your potential. Eventually, Gideon summons the courage to gather an army. 32,000 men show up to fight the Midianites. It sounds like a great start, right? But the Midianite army had 135,000 soldiers. Even at full strength, Gideon was outnumbered 4-1. Then, something completely counterintuitive happens. God tells Gideon his army is actually too big. If they win with 32,000 men, they will become arrogant and think they won by their own conventional strength. So Gideon is told to send home anyone who is trembling with fear. 22,000 men immediately pack up and leave. Now, Gideon has only 10,000 men left, but the cutting wasn't over. Through a test at a watering hole, the army is slashed again down to just 300 men. Gideon is now facing 135,000 enemy troops with 300 soldiers. He was stripped of his resources, his backup plans, and his safety nets. In your own life, you might experience seasons where you lose resources. Maybe a key team member quits, a major client drops you, or your budget gets completely slashed. Instead of panicking, look for the strategic advantage. Having massive resources often makes you slow, bloated, and uncreative. When you are stripped down to the bare essentials, you become incredibly focused, agile, and innovative. Subtraction is often the ultimate multiplier. When you are fighting an opponent with overwhelming resources, you cannot play by their rules. A frontal assault with 300 men would have been a massacre. Gideon needed an asymmetrical strategy. He needed to win the battle in the enemy's mind before a single sword was swung. Gideon armed his 300 men not with heavy weapons, but with empty clay pitchers, burning torches hidden inside them, and trumpets. In the dead of night, he surrounded the massive Midianite camp. At Gideon's signal, the 300 men simultaneously blew their trumpets, smashed the clay pitchers, and raised their blazing torches into the night sky, shouting at the top of their lungs. To the sleeping Midianite army, the sudden, deafening crash of shattering clay and the blast of 300 trumpets surrounding them created an illusion of absolute terror. In ancient warfare, only the commanders carried trumpets and torches. The Midianites woke up, saw 300 command torches, and assumed an army of hundreds of thousands had completely surrounded them. The result was absolute chaos. The Midianites were so terrified and disoriented that they turned on each other in the dark, and the entire army fled. Gideon's 300 men won a legendary victory without even having to engage in conventional combat. The Midianites were defeated by their own fear and confusion. Gideon leveraged his small size as the ultimate element of surprise. When you are the underdog, your greatest weapon is your ability to think differently. Your lack of funding forces you to be more creative. Your lack of experience allows you to see solutions that the experts are totally blind to. You don't need to match the giant's strength. You just need to outsmart their strategy. If Gideon's story inspired you to look at your lack of resources as a hidden advantage, please hit that like button and subscribe to Biblical Bios. I want to hear from you. What is a current limitation you are facing, and how can you turn it into your unfair advantage? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to check the description below for our $5 Underdog devotional and study guide, packed with daily actionable steps to help you overcome the giants and massive armies in your own life. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, you don't need a massive army to win. You just need to use what you have with absolute courage. Keep pushing forward, and I'll see you in the next video where we break down the incredible story of Ruth and how the smallest acts of loyalty can completely transform your destiny.